Deep within the quiet shadows of the kitchen of clouded memories, there lived a recipe. Not just any recipe. This recipe was once beloved, once whispered about in warm kitchens, once humming in hearts. Now it rested dusty, rolled in parchment, tucked behind sugar jars and forgotten wooden spoons. The air smelled faintly of vanilla and old paper. The recipe felt lonely, washed in soft moonlight, listening to creaks in floorboards and distant dripping of water from a leaky tap. That recipe longed to be remembered. That recipe had a dream, to be baked with love once more. From the very start, the recipe knew it needed more than words. It needed love in action. But what did love in action sound like? What did it look like in warm ovens and gentle stirring? The recipe did not yet know. What the recipe knew was that to be shared again, to be tasted again, something inside needed to change. The recipe needed to awaken, through caring, through kindness, through patience. The recipe lay inside a parchment sleeve, nestled behind dusty sugar jars. The kitchen of clouded memories was quiet. Cupboards sighed, rolling pins stood like silent pillars, old measuring cups echoed past laughter. The recipe, upon awakening with a soft flutter of parchment, sensed something. The voices of cooks in memories, laughter stirring spoons, the sizzle of batter. But something sad had happened. The recipe had been forgotten. No one had opened the parchment in many, many moons. The recipe trembled with hope. That recipe believed in one core thing: love in action could bring it back to life. A small spark of purpose ignited. The recipe decided to journey out of hiding, to face 3 caring challenges. Only by showing love through action in each challenge could that recipe be known again. Could people taste it? Could hearts remember warmth in every bite? So the path was set, 3 challenges, each one a test. Challenge 1, a caring act of kindness. Challenge 2, sharings. Challenge 3, patience and gentle tending. The recipe sensed that after those 3, a joyful resolution would come. The voice inside, soft, dusty, hopeful, felt excited. But what the recipe didn't know was just how difficult those challenges would be in the echoing corners of the kitchen of clouded memories. The recipe slid quietly from behind sugar jars. It passed by huge wooden spoon handles and tall stacks of plates. The floorboards creaked under a light breeze. It saw a jar cracked, a jar teetering, holding cinnamon sticks, one stick broken. The cinnamon stick on the ground was wounded, dusty, forgotten. The recipe felt sadness for the cinnamon. A kind warmth stirred. The recipe gently nudged the cinnamon stick back into the jar. The stick felt rough, fragrant even in its faint, broken state. The recipe lingered, whispering solace in the hush. Kindness can heal small wounds. Then the recipe turned toward an old salt cellar, tipping slightly, salt grains spilling. The recipe gathered grains, scooped with parchment edge, letting them tumble back with care. Each grain slipping back made a soft, whispery sound like tiny wind through leaves. In that pantry moment, the recipe showed love in action by tending to broken, neglected things. It acted, not just felt. That caring act glowed like a candle in dark corners, and as the recipe straightened the jar, the kitchen of clouded memories sensed a shift. Soft footsteps of remembrance, a distant echo of voices stirring spoons. The recipe's heart fluttered. Leaving the pantry, the recipe moved across old tile, over floor that smelled of flour and spice. The recipe saw one lonely spoon, metal dulled, handle bent, lying unused in a drawer. It remembered how the spoon once stirred batter, mixed sugar and butter, lifted dough. That spoon seemed sad, unheard, unused. The recipe lifted gentle edges of parchment, leaned so that sunlight through a dusty window caught on metal surface. The recipe imagined being stirred itself, being folded into batter. It imagined warmth, golden crust. But the lonely spoon could not do anything alone. So the recipe urged the spoon to join in. The recipe itself wrote its ingredients in soft ink again, called for butter, sugar, flour, eggs. One by one, those ingredients awakened in jars across the shelf. Each ingredient tumbled out, sugar sifting, butter softening, flour puffing, egg yolk slipping. The recipe shared its essence. It spread sweetness across sugar, richness through butter, warmth through egg. The spoon picked up each ingredient, mixing, folding, stirring. The soft scrape of spoon against bowl, the gentle whir of whisking. These were joyful sounds. The recipe had shared itself. Shared ingredients, shared purpose, shared action. The lonely spoon felt useful, felt alive. In sharing the recipe's own story through mixing, the recipe helped the spoon remember its own song. The bowl echoed with gentle swoosh, swoosh, and the kitchen of clouded memories seemed to breathe. Shadows retreated. The recipe's hope grew. But the biggest challenge was still ahead. After sharing, the recipe was batter now, thick, scented with vanilla, cinnamon, sugar. The bowl sat near the oven door, waiting. Flames hidden behind closed oven door, heat starting. The recipe felt warm waves, trembling with anticipation. But the recipe also felt fear. What if the oven was too hot? What if it burned? What if patience failed? The kitchen smelled of heat, of wood, of glowing embers, of something golden beginning. The recipe felt the batter bubbling faintly, rising slowly. The surface crackling, soft crust forming. The recipe remained still, allowing the process. Love in action meant waiting, nurturing, not rushing. Minutes passed, as minutes stretch when hope burns. Heat quieted internal whispers, but the recipe held steady. Soft crackles, soft hiss, warmth that turned fragrance into flavor. The aroma drifted, warm vanilla, sweet vanilla, gentle caramel, golden crust. The recipe understood, patience must be gentle, unwavering, love in action in waiting. Twice the recipe felt impatience, smell strong, urge to open oven door, urge to rush. But the recipe held back. It breathed in the fragrant heat, trusted the process. It listened to ticking of oven clock, to hiss behind door, to heat rising like a slow song. It waited. Finally, from inside the oven came a soft golden brown, edges crisp, center tender. In each challenge, the recipe did something, caring for broken things, sharing with the lonely spoon, waiting with patience. Each one showed love in action. Now came the resolution. Now came the moment of truth. With final golden crust and warm scent drifting in every corner, the recipe emerged. It was baked. It was warming the kitchen of clouded memories. The recipe had been transformed by love in action. No longer forgotten. The recipe was placed upon the wooden table. Light streamed. The spoon, the bowl, the jars, the measuring cups, everything remembered. The recipe's golden crust glowed. The fragrance invited. A small child's footstep in memory, a cook's heart remembering warmth, laughter. Because of the caring act in the pantry, the sharing with the spoon and the patience before the flame, the recipe was now ready to be tasted. And when tasted, the first bite was warm, sweet, comforting. Flavor more than words. Food made with love tasted best. In that moment, the kitchen of clouded memories resonated with joy. The measuring cups clinked softly, the rolling pin whispered of dough. The spatula remembered scraping every bit of batter. The recipe knew. Being remembered was not just about being seen, but about being felt, being tasted, being loved through action. In that moment, the recipe was shared. The recipe was eaten. And hearts remembered warmth. The kitchen glowed. The forgotten had become beloved again. Can you remember a time when someone did something kind for you, just like the recipe did in the pantry? Can you think of a time when you shared something or waited patiently and it made something better? If you like, take a deep breath and think of your own caring act, your own sharing, your own patience, small things that show love in action. Thank you for joining the journey of the forgotten recipe. Because of caring, sharing, patience, love in action woke up in dusty corners. Because of love in action, something once forgotten became something golden, something tasted, something cherished. In our next adventure, we will learn about something new, maybe about shapes all around us, or perhaps about our feelings inside. What shall we discover together next? Will we learn about shapes, or maybe feelings? Join us next time to find out. Moral core: the core value taught is food made with love tastes best.